welcome to the Carlisle Board of Selectmen meeting of Tuesday, July 24th, 2018. So I will read through the agenda. We may take some of these things out of order. I think it's going to be a pretty quick night.
You just jinxed it.
Miss Smith, are you done? Yeah. You weren't here last time, right? That's why it went so
fast.
Sorry. Okay, at 7 o'clock we're going to do community input. I think we'll, from the looks of it, we'll be jumping right into the Finance Committee appointment. And then at 7:30 we will be continuing, we will be opening the continued hearing for the grant of location for Bellows Hill Road from National Grid. At 7:45, we will continue our discussion of the fire chief's succession plan. At 8:30, we will discuss the Complete Streets projects prioritization. At 9 o'clock, discussion of the goals. 9:15, town administrators report. 9:25, cemetery fees. 9:30, appointments. 9:35, Board of Selectmen liaison reports. 9:45 minutes, and 9:50, we will not be going to executive session. And at 9:15, so at 9:45 we would be adjourning. With that, I just want to state that so Tim is out tonight, and I do have some notes, and Jen has some notes on the town administrators reports and on each of these discussion items that will come up. But he had a prior commitment, so he will not be with us tonight. And Alan is on vacation. And welcome back, Kate.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Yeah.
Good to be able to be back.
Good to have you back, cart and all.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Okay, so is there any community input? It would all fall on you, Bob.
I got a blank.
All right, seeing none, we will move on to the Finance Committee appointment. We received an email from the FinCom, an appointment that they are requesting. And they unanimously voted in support of James being appointed to the Finance Committee.
So this will still leave one opening, though, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Yes. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to appoint James Cataccio, 85 Old East Street, I hope I pronounced his name correctly, to serve on the Finance Committee with a term expiration of June 30th, 2021.
Second. Okay, any
I
further
read his
discussion?
resume. It was very impressive.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah, I
an
think
excellent addition.
We are just so incredibly fortunate to get so many incredibly talented people to join our boards.
Yeah.
Especially the Board of Selectmen. Did you miss it?
FinCom is just an awesome committee.
Yeah.
That's about over to my left. So there's a first and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and jump into the town administrator's report. Right. So most of these are just informational. There are a couple of items that we need to take action on. So the first is the Deer Committee Revolving Fund. They've requested that the board authorize the town accountant to create the revolving fund for FY19 for the administration of the new hunting program. It will be funded entirely from the receipts from the sale of the hunting permits. Are there any, you're on the Deer Committee, right?
Yes.
Do you want to add anything?
No, just that we've got, we expect a full complement of 18 applicants. And there'll be a second notification in the mosquito shortly. And I think they already have half of the applications in, so they're moving right along. It's, they're creating signage and figuring out the schedule for getting the signs up, et cetera. And, everything's on schedule.
Great. Any further, anything else?
So I move that the board recommend that the town accountant create a new fiscal year 19 revolving account pursuant to Mass General Law 44, 53E and a half to receive the receipts for the sale of deer bow hunting permits for the purpose of paying expenses relative to the administration of said program under the supervision of the Conservation Commission.
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. So, last week, it was, I think I'm getting this right, last week, Tim, 2 weeks ago, Tim said that there had been capital expenditure appropriated with the state. And what needs to happen now is lots of support and nudging from the town to, actually, I guess the funding is approved but not appropriated is the right way of putting it. So what we need to do now is get it appropriated. And so what he did was he attached 2 letters to this, and anybody else who wants to do so, we can coordinate through Tim and just make sure that they're hearing from us as much as possible. The money has been approved. That means only that the state can appropriate it. It doesn't mean at all that they have any inclination to appropriate it.
So should we, as a Board of Selectmen, send a letter as well then, or do you think as individuals, individuals, what are you thinking?
I think it would be good if we did it as a Board of Selectmen. And what I can do is just
We
ask.
did send 2 letters from the board already.
Oh, these are signed Tim.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
So if we could get these as a Word document,
Okay. I can do
if you wouldn't mind sending them out, and then we could use this as the template for our own. And are these normally mailed or emailed?
Both.
Both? Okay. So if we could get the email addresses,
Okay.
that would be great. And just call. Yeah, you have so much time.
I think the fire chief said he was going to send a letter as well.
Yeah, the chief.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yes, he did say he was going to. So if they'll send those over to us, and then we can all send. I mean, I prefer just to email it. But. All right. So Supreme Court decision in the Janus case.
Yeah.
That's also attached here. It's just an advisory from the Attorney General that recently the Supreme Court said that public employees who do not wish to be a member of the union do not have to pay what's called an agency fee.
And I think his
I think
report
that
should
there's a
read, we have
typo.
no such.
I think that there's a
public
typo
employees.
in here, because it says, to my knowledge, we have such public employees, but now, but it could impact down the road. So I think it meant no such employees, so that it really doesn't impact
Yeah.
us right now, but it certainly could if we did have that type of employee. And then on to number 4, which is the big one. Do you want to take this one, Jen? This is the one that we really need to do tonight, right? The election warrant?
Yes, the town clerk.
So we've been asked to sign 8 originals for the state primary election, so they can be posted here. And the state primary election is Tuesday, September 4th, which is the day after the Labor Day holiday.
Galvin's taking a lot of heat for that date.
Uh-huh.
We'll see how that goes.
And there are 5 to be signed.
And
And it did come from Mary directly, so.
it says here there should be 8.
Let's see. This is what she provides. And it makes sense too, because I normally do that. I will do that before the end of the evening and get to them just in case.
Okay.
And so I will date it.
Well, you do need a motion to do that.
Oh, okay, so.
So is there a motion for the board to sign the warrant for the posting of the state primary election to be held on Tuesday, September 4th, 2018?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? Is that an okay motion?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. While that's being signed, for August 14th, because we are not having the executive session tonight, we will have it on August 14th, and that is to discuss litigation and the town administrator employment agreement.
And if I may, the liquor license transfer referrals has been received today. We've scheduled that for 7:30 on the 14th.
Okay. Do you know what time we did?
7:30.
You just said that, didn't you?
Mhm.
That is not biting your tongue. I guess I'd like to just add goals in here again.
Okay.
Just keep pushing them forward. All right, so that's it for the town administrator report.
Cemetery meetings? We're back here?
Yeah, let's go on to cemetery deeds. You're so far away, Kate.
I know.
All right, so we have 2. Deed number 714 and 715. One is for Falcone and one is for Slim.
Speed it up, I'm sorry.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to transfer land in the public burial ground to Sully Falcone, 52 North Hill Road at Green Cemetery, Lot D, 212, graves 1, 2, and 3.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to transfer land in the public burial ground to James F. Sloan at 1286 Kerr Street at Green Cemetery, D, 235, graves 3 and 5.
3 and 4.
Sorry, 3 and 4. Boy, maybe I am a little concussed. What do you think?
Second?
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Unanimous.
Okay,
Thank you.
so,
There's another copy of the warrant for each of our things, so we can probably do the 6, 7, and 8, right?
Yeah,
If we each have one.
yeah, I have one here.
that's fine.
Okay. Okay, so, I'm gonna move on to appointments. We have another appointment. We have the FinCom appointment, and then we have a Recreation Commission appointment. And this is recommended by the Recreation Commission.
Here.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to appoint Courtney Bidelari, District to serve on the Recreation Commission with a term expiration of June 30th, 2021.
Second?
Okay, first and second. Any further discussion? Again, it's awesome that we get so many really great people serving on these commissions, these committees and commissions. I'm just looking to see, this will fill the Recreation Commission for normal members. Anybody wants to be an alternate, certainly could.
Yeah, Rick, I'm gonna cut down after a number of years.
Wow. Yeah, long time.
Yeah, long time chair.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Moving right along here.
Yeah. Second here.
Are we gonna have a trust meeting anytime soon?
First meeting what?
Trust, are we gonna have a trust meeting?
For this quarter?
Yeah.
Just started, but yeah, we'll have one a quarter. Yeah.
That on the way down.
2 members shy right now.
Insignificant.
No, that's fine. I think Maureen's really good. Maureen.
All right. Let's move on to the minutes of July 10th, 2018.
Brian gave 2 very small typos to Jen. So I move approval of the minutes of, I'll find them in here, Tuesday, July 10th, 2018. As
Nice.
presented.
Seconded?
Okay, it's first and second. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Did you say aye, Kate?
I did.
Okay.
Normally I
So it's
abstain,
unanimous.
but you know.
It's unanimous.
Yes.
Okay. We are cruising through this. Minutes. Minutes. Not gonna do that. So let's go ahead and, so we're expecting a presentation at 8:30 for the complete
8:30?
seats,
Oh.
complete streets? Okay. I expect that we'll have people here for the fire chief, and we can't start until 7:30 for the Bellows Hill. So let's move on to Board of Selectmen goals and liaisons, which I just had out here. But so as we discussed last time, you know, our goal for goals, if we want to call them goals, or agenda, or whatever we want to call it, our tasks for the year, was to simplify it, make them really achievable, and then just kind of hold ourselves accountable to them by following up, I would say, every couple couple months, just to make sure that we're making progress. The, Jen, is this one here the one that I had emailed, or is this last year's?
Oh, did you email them to you?
That's
Yeah.
last, oh,
Yeah,
That's last
okay.
that was last year's, I think.
Yeah, that's
if I
what I
read it
read.
correctly.
Okay, so mine aren't here.
Oh,
Uh,
hang on.
There's three.
But that's okay. So, and then I'm assuming, Kate, that these are yours?
Those were mine.
Okay.
If you want, we can.
I have others, but I could add, but I try to
Email
keep it.
Do
What's
you want
that?
to email them to me right now? Can you do it for me? And I'll go print them?
You missed this one.
Um,
It's up to you.
it would be pretty buried in my email and take me a while to find it. It was like 4 weeks ago now, right? 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. If I can go off of, what is this?
It's just one more of the warrants for the,
It's a warrant that somebody missed. Oh, Nathan didn't do these either, so that's all right. Just give me that one. Nathan, you'll sign these later, I take
Yeah,
it.
Nathan hasn't signed any of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, I passed them.
Okay, all right, so let's just jump into this. First of all, I think it's pretty critical that, and I know that Alan isn't here, but I think that we need to start getting some liaisons going so that we're not missing a lot of meetings. You know, for me, I'm fine being on all the same ones that I was on. I'm also fine moving if anybody wants anything that I was on.
So, that's my opportunity to say. You were on FinCom and the financial management team, and I went
Actually, we
to all of
swapped.
those, so.
I think
So
actually
can I
we
have
officially
those
swapped.
officially?
I think that we actually officially
Oh, did
swapped
we?
me off
Okay.
of those, yes.
All right, okay,
This
well.
just wasn't updated.
Oh, all right, so I would like the FinCom, all those financial babies.
So I do think it makes sense for there to be two. Do you want to be on it with her, or do you want me to be on it?
If you, yeah, want to be on it. I was gonna say, you can take my spot, Kate, but if you've already taken Nathan's, then Nathan, you can take mine if you want. Because I think it makes sense to have the chair as part of it. You know, I think chair and vice chair make a
Okay,
lot of
so
sense.
it would be Nathan and Kate.
Okay.
So that's for 3 of them, I've just changed it on, right?
Yeah, and then.
FinCom,
Well,
fine.
audit committee
and
too.
audit as well,
And
I was gonna
audit.
say, yeah.
Okay. Nathan and Kate.
And we can, we can move these around if Alan feels really, really strongly that he
Yeah.
would like one. Any other movement that you want to make, Kate?
Well, I didn't do any of the Carlisle Public School with Luke, but I would like to stay there anyway. I'd eventually like to get a little more active there. Let me see. And the Municipal Facilities Committee, I guess I was on with Claude. I'd like to keep that.
And I can take Claude's spot.
Municipal Facilities Committee
Luke?
was actually me. I was on it.
Yeah, well, yes,
And
you were,
and
actually,
now you have
but,
been appointed to it by us, right, already? I think that we swapped it out so that I was no longer on it and you're on it now.
okay, well then, all
Um,
right.
So I think that you're,
Because what I was on was the long-term caps.
right.
I
But
was actually
I think that, last time you were saying, well, there's such a big connection between long-term
Yes.
caps and that.
Right.
And so I stepped off as
Oh.
a board, as a member, when we
Oh,
when we appointed that whole slate.
okay,
I stepped off and you stepped in.
Okay.
So that you're actually now on the committee.
So I need to go
Jen, if
get
you wouldn't mind
sworn
just
in for
confirming
that.
But,
Yeah, I do believe that you are on
okay.
yeah, so I think that you're actually officially on the committee, not even just a liaison.
All right, so I should take myself off then as liaison.
Well, no, we'll just keep you on as a
Yes,
liaison
liaison,
and
and-
you're everything. So
So
we'll
this
just,
is member of Muni, member, and of the long-term, which I already was a member. Okay. All right, good.
Carrie?
I think well, same old, basically. And I think I sent you something with my druthers a couple of weeks ago, and I can't remember. I think the only other thing was probably school committee that I have not been involved in. And like Kate, I'd like to get a better understanding of everything having to do with the school. That's a big void in my knowledge.
Yeah, I think,
You said COA,
COA.
You're on.
CCTV.
Deer
Deer
Committee,
Committee,
you said Finance,
yeah, Druthers for Finance.
Senior Tax Advisory Committee,
Yep.
CCTV School Committee, Housing Authority, and Library.
Right,
Oh, so you're going to take Housing Authority? And I'll get off that?
okay.
Okay, so that's gonna be Carrie. And then Library is currently who?
I think
Library
it's-
was, well, I did a lot of their meetings, but I think you also, Carrie,
Yep,
went to a few of them.
right.
Do we need two on that, or do you want
Probably,
to stay two,
probably.
or?
We probably don't need to. I
They're
wouldn't
going to be
think.
getting a new librarian.
Yep,
I'm happy to do it. So it's up to you, Carrie.
Okay, we'll leave it both, it was both last year.
Okay.
Okay.
It seemed to work. So you said School Committee, we already have two on that.
yeah, I'd like to stay on school just because we're doing the contract
Yes,
negotiation.
I think you should.
And part of it, though, is I honestly think, I've been talking with David Modell while I was chair, and I haven't talked with him recently, but I think we do need to have more regular meetings where we have the school committee or a member of the school committee in to talk to the board, because it is such a huge, percentage of our town budget. And, I think they have a lot of the same ideas and thoughts that we do. And, I think we need to figure out creative ways to, work on the budget and they're totally receptive to that. Everybody realizes it's just such a huge burden to the town. Maybe burden isn't the right word, but tax burden, I should say. So I think having them in a little more regularly would be a huge benefit to everybody.
So
I was just looking to see if Alan
Okay.
sent me,
we're going to have to go over this one more time, because I
Yeah.
think we've been kind of scattershot here. And I noticed that I had Board of Appeals and Board of Assessors, with whom I did nothing last year. So if we want to have
Yeah.
that better covered, maybe somebody else should do that. And Claude was Board of Health.
Yeah, that should probably be Alan. Is he he's still on it, isn't he?
Alan?
Or did
Yeah,
he-
so
did he
maybe
find
Alan
out?
would be good for that, yeah.
we have your preferences now, right?
Mhm.
Carrie? I mean, it's because we're gonna have to fill it in, I just wanna make sure I'm getting
Yeah.
everybody's preferences in.
Okay.
Yeah,
No.
Do you have any preferences?
Yeah, I'm fine with the stuff that I've been on. One of the things that I would like to be on is Pathways. They've been informally keeping me in the loop on everything. Their meetings are kind of middle of the day sort of thing, but, Claude was the rep there, so.
Anybody else wanna anybody wanna fight him?
No.
All right.
And then, I don't mind doing CRAC or land stewardship, so Conservation Restriction Advisory Committee, but we can figure those out after, but those are both Claude's.
Those are all yours. Not my bailiwick.
Okay, how about if we leave those open in
Yeah.
case Alan wants?
Yeah, no, it's certainly fine, yeah, but
Okay.
I'm fine with everything else that I'm already
It's
doing.
mostly like finance and, public safety that I really want to make sure that
Yeah.
we get some assignments, and the school
Yeah.
committee.
Yeah.
Okay,
What about Public Works? Nathan, you were on that, did you?
yeah, that's kind of public safety, I'm happy to be
Oh,
on that.
okay.
That fire department, police department,
Oh,
public
okay,
works.
gotcha. Yeah, well, then there's household, let's see, who's that household?
Household recycling committee?
Recycling, that was
Okay.
Claude, wasn't it?
yes.
No interest in that.
So that kind of goes with Public Works, too, possibly, or not. Or it goes with Energy Task Force and,
I think it's more energy task force. Well, energy task force is its own thing.
Well, and they've been tasked with looking into the transfer station,
Right.
right?
yeah, so, I mean, so that's what I'm saying, that they,
I don't think they were officially been tasked with it.
who?
Oh, yeah. No,
Oh,
they
yes,
were.
no, we
Yeah, they
did.
were. Oh, yeah, yeah.
And we asked for a
Okay.
report, and we
Yeah.
gave them a date.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forget what the date was, but yeah.
I
Is it in the
think it
past?
was,
It's
it was
sometime in the fall.
November.
Yeah, it's sometime in the
September,
fall.
yeah.
Oh, and they're hot to trot. They're all excited.
All right, so should we just quickly just run through these? And again, if it's Claude and it's only Claude, if you really want it, go ahead and grab it. If not, let's just leave it open until Alan's here. And then
foist
all
it
of
on
these
Alan.
will be open again for Alan when he gets back. You know,
Yeah.
it's up for negotiation
Yeah,
again,
okay.
but I just want to get some names out to people. So we have the audit committee is Nathan and Kate. Board of Appeals is Kate. Board of Assessors is Kate. Board of Health is
I'll
unassigned.
give that out.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
Alan will.
You
Building
can't-
inspection, and we're just going to give it to him?
Yeah,
I think
just
that's
give
a
it
good
to
one.
him.
Yeah.
All right, Building Inspection Services is Nathan. Carlisle Public Schools is Luke and Kate. CCHS is Carrie. CCTV is Carrie. Community Preservation Act Committee is Luke. Communications Center is Nathan. Conservation Commission is Luke. Council on Aging is Carrie. Department of Public Works is Nathan. Energy Task Force Committee is Claude. Finance Committee is Nathan and Kate. Finance Director, Nathan and Kate. Financial Management Team, Nathan and Kate. Fire Department is Luke and Nathan. Historical Commission is unassigned. Housing Authority is Carrie. Household Recycling Committee is unassigned. Library, Carrie and Kate. Long-term caps is Carrie and Kate.
Well, I'm the member, he's the liaison. Sorry.
Pathways 2 is Luke. Personnel Board is Carrie and Kate. Planning Board is Kate. Police Department is Luke and Nathan. Recreation Commission is Luke. Technology is Bill Risso. Town Accountants, Bill Risso. Just seeing if you're listening. Let's see, Recreation Commission is Luke. Technology is Nathan and Kate. Town Accountant is Luke and Kate. Town Clerk is Luke and Nathan. Veterans Committee is Kate. Dog Committee is Luke. Deer Committee is Carrie. Facilities Committee is Kate. Agricultural Commission is Kate. Center Park Standing Committee is Carrie. Conservation Restriction Advisory Committee is unassigned. Land Stewardship Committee is unassigned. Scholarship Advisory Committee is Carrie. And Senior Tax Advisory Committee is Carrie.
Okay, I had bookcase for crack.
Hmm? Oh, yeah, I was gonna do crack and land stewardship, but we're gonna leave them empty until,
Yeah.
yeah, in case Alan wanted.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. Everybody okay with that for now?
For now.
All right, so you can reach out to your committees and let them know that you are their liaison. I am going to go ahead at this point and adjust to open the public hearing. So if I find it.
Number 3.
Okay, so I am going to go ahead, it being 7:36. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. National Grid Grant of Locations, Bellows Hill Road. And as you all may remember, this was a public hearing that we opened last meeting to extend the gas main up Bellows Hill Road. I'm forgetting what, I think it was 127 to 222, or, I'm forgetting off the top of my head what it was. 211. So 125 to 211, it's pretty close. And there was nobody from National Grid in attendance, so I continued the public hearing. And so I guess I will ask now if there's anybody here to present or to discuss the grant of locations for Bellows Hill Road for gas main.
I can tell you, I've placed several phone calls and several emails, no response.
Okay.
And I think Tim spoke with town council, and he said if the
Yes,
board was
yeah.
inclined to.
Yeah, I guess that there's some issues going on right now with, deny it. But, so, you know, we have reached out to them, and I think what I am going to do right now is, I am just going to, entertain a, motion that, that the Board of Selectmen vote to deny the permit based on the fact that nobody showed.
Actually, we need to close the open hearing first before we do our discussion and have our vote, it seems to me.
Okay?
I believe that's the order of procedure.
All right, does anybody want to discuss anything before I close the public hearing?
Well, we're not supposed to discuss anything before
That's
open
not true.
hearing.
This is, I mean,
is to-
anybody,
is
any
to take
people
in
here,
facts.
people are here to be able to participate.
Okay, if they want to bring us facts, they
And-
can, but
yeah,
we can't
and we're welcome
discuss.
to,
Okay.
that's not true. We can discuss, but, so, anybody want to, anybody have any input? Not here for Bellows Hill Road?
I guess I could make a comment that I don't know whether it sheds any light on National Grid's application, but the residents at 211 has applied to the fire department for underground LP storage tanks. The maximum limit on a residential property under the state regulation is 2,000 gallons, which they requested 3,000 gallons storage for propane because they don't have a gas service. The 2,000 gallon permit has been issued, but in order to exceed that capacity under the regulations, it requires a license granted by the Board of Selectmen. So the homeowners, along with the contractor, would need to come to the board and present their plan, which would be reviewed by the fire chief and other public safety officials for comment and recommendation back to the board for the granting of the license. That's a lot of propane on a residential property in an area that doesn't have good water supply. So that's just a comment I'm making. I think that's probably what's happening for at least 211 for their solution for their gas service. And I understand.
Rather than this?
Right, I understand that, a generator was put in, they have a pool, there are many different needs for gas supply at that residence. So that's in progress with, I don't believe the work's been completed, but it has been permitted for 2,000 gallons of underground storage.
For 2,000?
2,000.
Because we haven't seen it for 3,000, okay.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I haven't seen anything come forward, and Tim did confer with town council regarding the procedure for that, 'cause it's very rare to ask for a license for storage. I've not seen that in my years, in that quantity.
Mhm.
Usually it's industrial, type thing, so,
Okay, all right, thank you.
yeah.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing for grant of location for Bellows Hill Road from National Grid. And now we can chat.
Well, I think, since our major job here is to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the town, and giving some of the letters and documents that we were presented, that kind of put that into question, whether the work would be safely done. And also, if we were to allow this, which I'm not inclined to do, I would certainly want it to be bonded as per section 26 of our regulations in the Town of Carlisle Department of Public Works Regulations, paragraph 18 and 19, which requires bonding of any work done in our public ways. So,
Yes. And we talked about that last time about, and I think, the question that we asked was, well, how do we know how much to ask for? And I think
well, in
that-
fact, that would, it's like in planning board, what we do is we ask them to hire a consulting engineer on our behalf, and that gets rolled into their costs. And then they do all the inspections for us to make sure everything's done in a proper way.
Okay. I guess I feel like nothing's been presented, so we have nothing really to decide. I mean, there's no reason to grant a permit if the applicant does not show or respond to it.
Yeah,
Yeah, Carrie?
I agree.
and we have overwhelming safety concerns.
Same way.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, so I move that we deny the permit.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Okay.
Minutes. Anybody want to give a liaison report?
Yes,
Great.
I would like to.
Please.
I'd like to report on the Center Park, which we probably haven't heard a whole lot about for a while. As everybody may recall, last year at the, after the Center Park Standing Committee basically resigned at the end of October, we were looking for ways to not let the park just go to seed. And we looked at 3 or 4 alternatives, including just letting the DPW mow the lawn there and letting everything else go to seed. And one of the options we had was to basically give responsibility back to the founder of the park, who was very interested in keeping it going. And even though she no longer lives in Carlisle, was eager to assume that role, reassume that role, and had been the primary fundraiser and the prime mover to making the park what it is today. 11 years in the making, and it's still very beautiful. Up till last year, all of the funding had been through private donations. And one of the things that happened when the standing committee was appointed was that they were unclear about their role in fundraising. The money didn't come in as it had in the past. They basically asked the selectmen to provide some funds for the first time in 10 years to help maintain the park. And the Board of Selectmen approved at town, recommended and town meeting approved, I think, $4,000, was it $4,000 or? $6,000 for the maintenance of the park. So that was made available to the standing committee, or what was left of the standing committee. They were very careful in spending, and they spent down by about $2,000 or $3,000. The remainder remained in the account, as did the remainder of private donations. So there's enough money there to basically get them started and with spring cleanup this year, and have the founder basically in solo orchestrate the cleanup, work with Tim Goddard to get money expended as was requested to hire various people to do various maintenance functions. So that's all taken place. Tim has worked very comfortably with the founder. It's been a good relationship, according to both of them. The park looks wonderful and is a treasure. No further funding, public money has been spent on the park. But the responsibility was given back to the founder with the understanding that if there was no public support and private donations to fund the continued maintenance that she would step aside at the end of this calendar year. And then the park would presumably have a very unforeseen future beyond that point. Beyond perhaps getting the grass mowed by the DPW folks. So that's where we are. The founder has recently received another check in her fundraising activities for $1,000. She still has not garnered any kind of community support to lend a hand. People will write checks, but they won't get in there and become a member of the Friends of the Park in a formal way to establish a not-for-profit corporation to fund it. So it sits there in a very tenuous situation. It's beautiful. It's very well maintained. It has the care and love of the founder supporting it, and virtually is costing the town nothing at this point to keep it maintained. But until and unless she can get some community support, the future is uncertain. So for anyone listening to this meeting is interested in helping in that regard, I'd say it would be, given the amount of community service that high school students have to do, and given all of the folks that, gardeners in town that appreciate what's been done there, I think there could be enough community support and certainly enough private funding support to continue it the way it's been with an appropriate group of folks that would be assume the responsibility of saying, yes, we're here to support Center Park because it's a real asset to the town. Mm-hmm. So that's where it is. It's still, as it always has been, in need of broad support beyond financial support to keep it going. And so anyone who's interested, please contact Tim Goddard. You can contact me. Sabrina Perry has been undaunted in her support and of the park as it enters its 11th full year of operation. So that's all I know. But if anyone has any interest in seeing it maintained in perpetuity in the future, come forward and make that known, and I'm sure we can find a way to organize to make that happen.
Right, yeah, and just to reiterate what you're saying, it's, the financial backing is incredibly important, but the volunteer activity is equally as important in order for us to continue to maintain Center Park. So we really, really need a Friends of type group who will own and maintain, well, not own, but maintain the park. Yep. Thank you, Carrie.
Excuse me, do you know if the founder made any headway into establishing a 503C? Because that was, as I recall, what she was specifically tasked to do. She was supposed to.
She's been advised that's not needed, that she doesn't need to do that. So she's not pursuing that at all at this point.
All right, well.
I don't know who's giving her that advice, but she has a significant other
counter to what we asked her to do.
That's helping, sort of with it. But yes, it is counter to what we have to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any update liaison reports? We'll just get through it and then we'll jump onto liaison reports.
You've heard a snippet from the Deer Committee that they're on track, so that's about,
No, nothing major. I can wait.
Okay.
I should say that it's likely that half the applicants for deer permits will come from outside of Carlisle. At the rate that they're going, yes.
Half of them?
Yeah, and that's consistent with the hunting that's has gone on in private lands in the past, where the private landowner has given permission to bow hunt on their property. It's about half and half, people in town and people from out of town.
All right, let's move on to the fire chief's succession plan. Okay, we still have in our packet the MRI proposal. And you guys want to come on up? That way we don't have to be yelling. It actually works really well this way because then you're always kind of on the mic. So I think there were a few things, and Kate, so we went through this last, 2 weeks ago, we kind of talked about a strategy. There were a couple of things that were kind of next steps. We agreed that we should create a committee to find or and propose a new fire chief. And we also agreed that we should hire a consulting company to help us with that search. So I guess it was a search committee and a search consultant.
Right.
So Tim has reviewed proposals from search committees, and he is proposing that we would select MRI. We also talked, kind of all four of us here, Burton, Deputy White, and Chief Flannery. We chatted about kind of like what the next steps would be. I think one of the things was for you all to think about if there's a regular firefighter, who might that be on the committee, and also an officer who might be on the committee. I think I had thrown out there the possibility that this is like a 7-person committee with a much, or not, maybe not much, but a larger group of people, more inclusive of the members of the fire department as part of the interview process, but not necessarily a part of the search committee. So there's 2 people who were not here last time. Do you have any questions or comments?
No, I think it pretty much up to speed. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think it makes sense to use.
And I think as a side thing, there was, I think there was a question of, well, should we, go ahead and start drafting a job description? And I said, sure, we should draft a job description. So I know that you sent me a job description from a recent posting. But just to kind of get that going ahead of time, we're really under the gun here. One of the things that I suggested was that, we're talking about this every single Board of Selectmen meeting.
Yeah.
With the committee.
Yeah, okay.
Do you have any questions or anything, Kate? Just kind of get up to speed questions.
I guess the only question I had was about strong or not strong.
It's okay.
And where that
we
fits
can
in the
discuss
whole
that.
process.
Yeah, we
okay.
can discuss that. Maybe let's start with just the search
Otherwise,
committee.
the search
yeah.
committee, from that point of view, I concur. I think that sounds like a very good plan. I think it's very important to have a consultant working with us, and I think 7 members are manageable. Yeah. So I think all that sounds good.
Okay. Anything that you all want to add, and particularly to update?
You mentioned the company that did the last thing that you decided to use them again, the MRI. Is that what you just said?
Well, that's what we're going to discuss that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything to add? Anything that maybe we'll make sure Kate knows before?
I did solicit to the Department for Regular Firefighters, which is a smaller group. There's only 10 now, and I do have a candidate to propose to, which is Matt Herwick, who is a relatively new regular firefighter.
Okay. Can you spell his last name?
Herweck.
And have you talked to Matt?
Yes.
Okay. So looking at this, I'm looking at Tim's notes, but I've already put the minutes away, so I'm pretty sure that this matches, we were talking about 2 selectmen, to which, Alan requested to be one. Tim Goddard. I think, somebody we didn't talk about, which I think is potentially a good idea, would be Chief Fisher, because they'll be working closely together. Fire department, so if it's, let's just say it's Matt as the regular fire department, and then we talked about it being an officer or one of you,
All right.
or Bert. You're okay with that?
I'm okay with
Okay.
that. And yes,
Just
he
wanna
did-
make sure that
yes, he
people
did talk
aren't
to-
volunteering.
yes, he did talk to me
Okay.
about it.
Sometimes that doesn't happen. Um,
So I just want to clarify with Matt, so the regular firefighters were polled and Matt volunteered?
I solicited to the group, correct,
All right,
yes.
okay.
Yeah, and I had 3 responses,
Mhm.
and I selected Matt.
And what was, so if there were 3 people who were interested, what made us focus in on Matt?
I think that his recent appointment as a regular auxiliary, as a regular firefighter moving from an auxiliary, his background in firefighting when he was in the Marine Reserves, and his enthusiasm and willingness to help in whatever way he can in this process.
Mhm.
So,
And, I'm sorry, how long has he been on?
I think it's 3 now, going into his 4th year.
Year. And then there's still one citizen at large. We talked about a citizen at large.
Bill Russo?
I'm not gonna speak for Bill Russo, he's shaking his head no.
He's shaking his head no.
I'm gonna be gone the month of August, so.
You can call him.
We'll draft it.
So I guess, we need a citizen at large, or I guess I would propose it could be another, no, we need a citizen at large. Right.
What about somebody from planning board, since they have dealings with I'm just throwing that out there. Fire department for, laying out roads and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, just trying to find some sort of connection.
Has Chief Fisher been asked?
I believe so. So, I think it would make sense for the other person to be either you or me, because we're the liaisons. Rock, paper, scissors?
We can talk about it.
I would enjoy being on it, so,
Oh, well then.
yeah. It's
All
super,
yours.
it's super important, I care.
Yeah, no, it really is important.
Yeah, now you can try to say it. Okay, so we have,
Nathan.
Nathan, Alan, Tim, John Fisher, Bert,
Matt,
Matt,
and a citizen at
citizen
large.
at
and a
large.
citizen at large. How do we come up with a citizen at large?
Advertise in the Mosquito,
It was in last time, probably.
was it?
I don't know. No?
Not that specific.
No, it just mentioned, but didn't solicit someone to
Solicit
step forward.
somebody.
I can send out something on the news and announcements to anybody who's subscribed to the website.
Yeah.
Because the next mosquito is out this week, and then it's 2 more weeks after
Yeah.
that, till the next one.
Right. All right, so why don't we do this? Why don't we go ahead and appoint these people, and then maybe what we can do is get together and talk about how we would go about getting somebody, and, maybe,
Still gives you a
maybe there's
quorum.
somebody else that we can, some other way we can fill that role and come back, to the board to make a suggestion on that other one, but we don't lose time.
We'll pick up your request in my other
Okay, thanks.
contact too.
Uh-huh, great, thank you. All right, so is there,
Need a motion?
I do need a motion to appoint these people to the Fire Chief Search Committee.
Was there a question?
Oh, yeah, anybody have anything to
My
add?
question was, what's the objective of the citizen at large? What is that person gonna bring to your search committee?
We generally just try to get citizens at large because they're often not, sometimes there's particular opinions based upon different committees that somebody may be on, and it's good just to try to get that broad, just bring in a citizen and get them involved in it. It's also a good way to trap people into being on future committees.
Got it. Thanks.
And also, what sometimes happens is you get somebody in town that has this kind of unique experience directly related to what you're looking for. I mean, like we saw with the communications. It's really kind of nice, I mean, that doesn't always happen, but sometimes you really luck out. And, I mean, it happened with the school committee, the building committee. I mean, it just, every once in a while, somebody will be like, yeah, because it's a short-term thing typically, and, so hopefully we'll get somebody that.
Yeah, but if we don't have somebody in the next couple of weeks, we're gonna have to rethink what
Yeah.
that makeup is so that we have 7 people.
So I move that we establish a fire chief search committee with 7 members, and that we appoint Alan and Nathan as the 2 selectmen members, Tim Goddard, Chief Fisher, Matt Herwick as a fire department, and Bert as fire department members, and 1 citizen at large to be named.
Okay, is there a second?
You just did chief and myself.
No,
2,
that-
3,
that would
4,
be,
5,
that's,
6, 7.
that is the committee, that's 7
the committee,
people.
that's the search committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, we have a search committee. Now let's talk about the MRI proposal. So, I really don't want to lose time here. That and Tim recommends that, we make a selection now. I just want to ask if we feel the risk is too high for us to have the search committee review this before we select them as the consultant.
At what risk are you thinking about?
Timeframe.
Oh, the risk of
Right,
delaying
because
the timeframe.
we can't hire them then until August 24th.
Right.
Because that's our next meeting.
It's,
And so, unless we had, I'm just checking to make sure that that is our next meeting. Why is it?
August 18th.
August 8th.
One second. It's on the back of my agenda. 14th.
August 14th.
yeah.
So that's,
3 weeks.
it's like,
a lot of time.
it's a lot of time.
Yeah, but we could always have a quickie meeting to,
We could,
I mean, it's
With-
important enough for.
3 days notice, yep.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to have the people who are gonna be working with the search committee that's gonna be working with the consultant to actually review the proposal, and maybe even the proposals. Yeah, so I mean, I don't see any harm in waiting and having the search committee review this as well. I mean, as long as it's not dragged out for the full 3 weeks.
Right. What do you think, Bert?
I think that's a good idea. How strong was Tim's recommendation? I mean, was it like, this is overwhelmingly, these are the people we should choose, or they're all pretty equal, and since we've worked with them, they're slightly higher on the list?
Their client list was
Yeah.
Yeah.
overwhelmingly
Yeah.
positive.
Yeah, here's the reference list.
And they were the low bidder.
And they were low, I mean, they did Acton, Brookline.
Is this the same organization that
Concord.
did the study here previous?
I think MRI is the same one that did it previously.
I think the group needs to have a discussion over this. Past experience with that politicized event that happened in this town. It was very slanted. And the organization has a lot of background that is negative, that goes with national in this state and beyond. Illegal activities from the person who owns it.
Yeah, did you see the other proposals? I mean, 'cause
I have not.
yeah, we've only seen this one,
Yeah,
so.
this is the only one. And
Um,
so that's why I'm suggesting, I think it's, personally, I think maybe I didn't say it strongly enough, I think it's worth the risk
Yeah.
to wait so that the search committee,
Especially if there seems to be some question.
Yeah.
It's more
yeah,
than.
well, I mean, I trust Tim, but I think,
Yeah.
it would be good to see, it would be, we just set up the committee. Maybe that committee, can meet next week or, and review all the proposals with Tim.
Okay.
That would be.
Sounds like a plan.
It kind of seems odd to, on the same day that you're selecting a committee, to also be selecting a consultant who's gonna work with the committee, and they have no input. I understand that we're really, really pressed for time, but it just seems odd to me. Okay, so, let's get together, oh, keep looking for Alan. Let's get together as soon as we can. Jen, would you mind making sure that we get that scheduled? Because if somebody could send Matt's email,
I
Jen?
have it.
Oh, you already have it?
Yeah, I've
Okay.
been looking for the hearing next
Of course you
week.
do, you have everything. And we'll try to get together next week. Okay, so we're not going to decide on MRI today, and we have a good strategy going forward. And then, again, every Board of Selectmen meeting, I would like us to have an update on this, and not just as a liaison. We'll try to get as many from the search committee in the room as possible,
Yeah.
so that it's not just a standard liaison.
Yeah. I think it makes sense.
That way, we're providing input all the way along, and we don't get to the end and find that there's a problem.
Nice.
And the transparency that goes with it
Yes.
is good.
Yep. All right.
I think was a major, and we'll look at it may not be that the proposal's bad or anything, it may just be the working arrangement and, transparency and
Yeah.
inclusion.
Do you have the proposal?
Not yet,
Well, yeah, I mean, Tim can probably send them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you might as well have it.
Do we have any other proposals or bids on them?
I don't have any of the
Yeah,
other ones.
we've only seen this one.
We've only seen this one. That's the only one that was in the packet last time, too.
Yeah, which, even though we trust him, it's,
It'd be good to see him.
yeah.
Yep.
More than one?
You can keep that, you don't have to read it right now.
Okay. I won't ask questions yet.
Anything else?
I just think the Board of Selectmen has to have a complete picture of this organization that worked in this town previously,
Mm-hmm.
and the issues in underground politics that happened in this town.
Yeah, well, we'll chat about it in the search committee and come back with a proposal.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you all very much. Thank you.
I can send out a leave survey.
That'd be great, thank you.
Did you meeting during the day?
Bedford's the only one that has the conflict.
I should give day options as well as the.
Early morning options would work. 7, 8, 9.
4:30.
Alan's at sea, right?
Is he? Yeah.
I think so,
Yeah, Alan's at sea right now.
Okay.
Doesn't mean he doesn't get Wi-Fi from time to time. This complete streets, sorry, I've lost my
Yeah, it is.
agenda, so I'm gonna look at yours.
The only
Yeah,
thing left
we've done-
is complete streets and,
Oh, we still haven't discussed our goals.
oh, I already checked them off, though.
Yeah.
So I received an email from a resident, and I think she'd emailed you or Tim. I'll have to look at my email, but they want to set up a bin for clothes. Did you see that?
A bin for clothing.
Yeah, it has to do with donations. Let me find it.
Aren't there 2 at the transfer station?
Yeah, this is something to do with the school, and in order to have it at the school, I'll find it. In order to have it at the school, the company that's doing it wants to, or organization, I should say, that's doing it wants to have 2 bins in town. Let me just find this. I meant to talk to you about this prior to the meeting. Bay State Textile. So, so the PTO is looking to establish a new fundraiser, and they're exploring the possibility of having a collection bin for textiles at the school provided by an organization called Bay State Textiles, original. But long story short, they would like to place an additional collection bin in town to kind of make it worth their while.
What were they proposing?
Well, that's the thing. So they wanted to come to the Board of Selectmen to determine if we had any problem with it. And I guess ultimately, we would probably try to figure out where the second bin would be, because there'd be one at the school. Apparently, the school committee's fine with it. So the idea would be, where would the second one go?
How about 2 bins at the school?
There you go. Yeah, no, I think they probably want multiple locations just for that. Oh, I don't want to go all the way to the school, it's 2 miles away,
Okay.
sort of thing. But yeah, no, it's just, I received that email, so I wanted to pass along and see if people had ideas. I think, because there already is something at the transfer station, right?
Yeah,
Is it
this
clothing?
Goodwill, is it?
Yeah. So you don't really want to conflict with that.
I'm assuming though, if it's a textile thing, they're not necessarily clothing
It's
they're
not
looking
exa-
for,
yeah,
it's
no,
just
that-
for recycling and making into cotton paper or something?
Well, it could be, yeah, so.
So, I mean, you would, there's lots of times where you have clothes that really are not usable
Right.
and givable, but they could be
Yeah.
recycled
Yeah.
into clothing, into
Right,
paper, so.
right. Let me go to the website.
And if that were the case, it would not conflict.
Right.
Otherwise, Ferns might. Of course, that's very close to the school.
Yeah.
But it's more public and
It's
people
a
might,
different set of traffic.
yeah,
For sure, yeah.
yeah. Maybe they should approach Ferns
Mhm.
as or the library.
Yeah, so actually they want usable clothing, because they export half of its clothing donations and collections go to developing countries. Healthy demand for used clothing and shoes, so
Okay.
yeah, they basically want usable stuff. It's one of those things I can have them come in and
Yeah, I
discuss
think
it.
unless we want to just, I think we just add it to another.
Yeah, no, exactly, but
agenda.
yeah, no, I just wanna toss it out there,
Yeah.
because, yeah,
So
Yeah.
maybe you could ask them if they want to come on the 14th,
sure.
and if they do, we'll put it on the agenda.
Yeah, it shouldn't be long. Yeah, I think the thing was, if we would be open to it, or whether or not it's just a flat out no.
One at the end of the town, at the parking lot here in the town hall.
All right, so
Right, exactly.
let's jump back into goals.
Oh.
So, actually mine weren't here, but I just quickly, I think, narrowed it down to those that I think are good, important goals. So, Carrie, did you send me some? Yeah. What's that? Yes. It was just to me and not to Tim as well?
Just to you, I think, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, so we didn't get that.
Okay. Did you send any goals
No.
just to me?
No.
Did I mess that one up too?
No.
Okay.
Yes, I did, yes. No, I didn't send anything. Yeah.
Okay, so, I guess what I'd like to do first is just kind of start looking at what I feel we did a little bit wrong last year in developing the goals. I think that some of our goals were, I think that we did a pretty good job making them measurable goals last year. But I'm not sure that we were really focused on some of the most pressing issues
Yeah, well,
for the town.
yeah.
I think that we did a really good job this year in working with FinCom on the budgeting process, though,
Yes.
I would give an awful lot of that credit for that to FinCom.
Yeah, yeah, no,
I'm not sure we did a whole lot of that, as much as they really
Yeah,
reached
no,
out to
they-
us and
yeah, they're fantastic.
made that happen. They really, truly are awesome. So if we go through, we had a lot about sustainable budget. I have a little bit of an issue, particularly not sitting with FinCom, of coming up with a percentage increase. Whereas last year, we said we want to keep it to 2.5%. I think whatever the reasonable number is, if we want it to be a number, should be developed jointly with FinCom, not
Not
in a
just us.
vacuum.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
us.
Exactly.
But I do think that, we want to ensure that, I would like us to continue to have a goal of focusing on keeping tax increase as low as possible. I don't know what everybody else thinks about that.
Yeah, no, I think last year, when we discussed it, I think the emphasis was that we wanted something that was measurable. And I think that's why we set these so specific, but it's not necessarily practical to do that.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, I
Well, I'm actually fine with there being a number here.
no, I'm fine with there being a
I
number
just don't
too.
think,
It's
I just don't think we can create that number without talking to FinCom.
Exactly, yeah, and,
So,
right.
maybe it's, maybe the goal is working with FinCom to, establish, a budget increase number that we're all comfortable with,
Mhm.
prior to the budgeting process starting.
Yeah. Yep. Well,
I do
yeah.
think the budget needs to remain a top goal.
Right.
Well, I kind of worry about assuming a budget increase. Maybe we, why do you assume, why are we talking about a budget increase?
Mhm.
Maybe we should be thinking about a budget decrease. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
So
I,
that's what worries me about setting a number like that, because that kind of, gives everybody the impression that, well, gee, we have 2.5% to play with,
yeah, right, there's a certain number that you can hit, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, and I think the biggest thing that was helpful last year was the whole, it says here, the apples to apples comparison. And starting the budget process early enough, I think we were able to do that, and ultimately what happened was people that came in late, it was too late. It was like, sorry, we saw with the pathway stuff, and there's something else that came in late, right? That, it was too late in the process, and,
So I would recommend that and I think we've talked about this, certainly the past 2 years, for those people who've been on it, but we're working with FinCom on, what is that cutoff date? If you're not in by this date, there's no talking about it anymore.
Right.
It is a hard cutoff date.
right. Yeah.
We kind of sort of have one, but it's not enforced.
Yeah.
And, I think if people know, hey, if I don't have it in by January 15th, I'm just out of luck for this year.
Yeah.
Well, there are things that come up that are unanticipated, and that's, I think, one of the things that happened last year. For instance, the generator at the police department.
Yeah, but that was actually paid for out of last year's budget.
Well, but it wouldn't have been had it been it was supposed to be paid out of next year's budget,
Mhm.
but it didn't get paid out of next year's budget because it came out of turn.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and, I mean, I think though, ultimately, we have to have the understanding that those things are gonna pop up. But it's, because a lot of the meetings last year, especially later on, kind of February, early March, I don't wanna say got derailed, but they really did get derailed because of these last minute things coming in that, we were trying to entertain, the discussion, but it really didn't go anywhere and didn't add much value when we should have really kind of hammered down on the things that, were brought to us earlier. We had decided, yep, these make sense, let's move forward with them. I feel that, we unfortunately kind of pushed those off to the side a little bit, to entertain, the latecomers.
Mhm.
And,
And the problem is the latecomers always get more attention than
Right.
perhaps other things that really should be a higher priority, but were eliminated,
Already eliminated.
Right, right, because even one of the things, that I realized at town meeting was when the whole facilities piece went through, and people just brought up those random questions. There were things that, I think we had answers to, but, what's his name, Jerry, made some kind of broad statement comments, but, like they brought up, oh, well, you're spending money for the fire department just so, people can pee and stuff like that, and why do you need them? And it's things like ADA compliance, and, we have women that are volunteers now that need changing areas. There are things that we could have done better to prepare ourselves for questions like that. No, this is why we need it, because, I mean, ultimately it passed, but, it shouldn't have even gotten to that level of, I don't want to say silly questioning, but, and of course it was based on another thing not passing or not happening. But I think what we should really do is, kind of have that cut off and entertain the important things that come after. We didn't know this was gonna happen, but really focus on getting the information out there for the budget requests that we feel, are significant and substantial and should be the ones that, we want the town to approve and carry forward. And, and then just, maybe each one of us could take something and go specifically into the mosquito. This is why these facilities things are happening in the maintenance. And, just have it very detailed, so when people come to town meeting, they know exactly what is on the agenda, what it's there for, what the money's being spent on. Whereas, I think, like you said, the kind of last minute stuff came in and gets more of the attention. And then the stuff that, like facilities that people were working on for 6, 7, 8 months, kind of gets pushed to the back burner. And, because it wasn't necessarily a slam dunk, but, you go, oh, no, well, that's, we've been working on that long enough, it's well prepared. And I just think we could have defended some of those things better. But I like the idea of a hard cutoff.
Mhm.
I think you need it.
Well, I thought the process worked really well last year. I mean, and the presentation by FinCom at town meeting was,
Awesome.
couldn't have
Yes.
been any better as a way of helping folks understand why we were doing what we're doing. But I think the thing that I feel the most lacking for me anyway is that we get to next year and we really don't know how we did on an ongoing basis the previous year to get us to that point. Our financial literacy seems to me is very low. Mine is, because I don't know how we're doing throughout the year. I'd like to see, now that we have an assistant treasurer appointed, maybe we can get better reporting earlier in the year as to how we're doing. And when things do come up that affect the trajectory of our spending, we know it early enough on so that we can head it off for the coming year.
Yeah.
Because as we go into the next year without really having much information, substantive information about how we did the previous year.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
Carrie, the FinCom does get that information all during the their whole process.
Well, I'm sure they probably
So-
do.
So
but
I'm
it-
just saying, it's
yeah.
not like it's not out there
Yeah.
and that nobody's looking at it. FinCom does actually consult with both the accountant and the treasurer on various budget items and say, well, where are we this year? How did we
Mhm.
do last year? And they have, they go back several years, in fact, in looking at at trends and.
Well, it's
things
not,
like that.
it's not trickling through to me, certainly.
Well, because it's really.
Or the
Yeah.
town, it's not trickling,
Okay, well.
trickling through to the town either. I think that, I think if we had more frequent reporting on an ongoing basis as to how we're doing, some kind of dashboard that they could look at it on our new website to say, here's how we're doing throughout the year, I think it would take us a long way to, when we do get finally to approving the budget, people will be a lot better informed. So that's my, what I feel as a,
So as the person, as one of the people responsible for the finances, you want to see more reporting?
yeah.
Okay, that's reasonable.
I mean, I think, I've seen in, other reports from other towns where they show the budget, but they also say, okay, you're spending $15,000 on average for real estate taxes. Did you know that this number of thousands goes to the public schools in Carlisle? This number of thousands goes to the high school? This 3,700 here is for DPW and Safe Streets, et cetera. What is our money spent as it relates to an individual homeowner who's spending that $15,000 or more dollars a year in taxes? It's what am I getting for this specifically, and does it make sense? Does it make sense that we're spending? I mean, everybody has gotten accustomed to 67 or 70% of our spending goes to the schools, but maybe we shouldn't be accustomed to all that. Maybe there should be more questioning about the balance of all of these things. And it takes reporting in order to do that. So that's just a personal rant that I have about a lack of understanding of how we get to town meeting. I thought the process was excellent in getting there, and the participation of all the groups was excellent in getting there, but I just think there needs to be more of an ongoing reporting about how we're doing to us and to the town.
Okay.
We still don't report, for example, benefits in every departmental budget. How do you know what the budget is when it doesn't include anybody's pension or health care? I mean, how do you know?
For instance, the school budget does not have any benefits.
No department does. None of the departments do, the way they're reported. So how do you know, how do you really get your arms around, is this reasonable? Does this seem reasonable to me? How do we justify? Are we getting our money's worth for each of these functional activities that we provide to the citizens?
Yeah, and when there are these changes, especially in personnel, what is the real cost?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, somebody's gotta have that number somewhere. It's
I
just gotta be
think
explained out.
Carrie said that our controller, financial, said that if we included OPEB as well as healthcare, as well as retirement in each of the departmental budgets, everyone's salary would be kicked up by 40%. 40% of everyone's salary is for those, that's a big piece of change, but it never gets allocated on a departmental basis.
Okay. So I'm going to summarize that as we need a goal that has to do with finances. And Kate, you have a goal that I completely agree with, and it was actually on last year's. Not that I don't agree with more of your goals, but
No, I just
adopting the financial policies, but also reviewing our existing policies.
Yeah,
Just doing a review of them.
I brought the cover of this, which is a huge financial policy that was actually generated for us somewhere else, that we've really never talked about that I'm aware of.
Right.
And I would love to go review that and adopt it into our policy handbook. At the same time, I would really dearly like to update our I put it back in my thing. See all these little yellow stickies here?
Yeah.
Those are all the policies that need to be reviewed. I mean, we have some, for instance, the fire department voted to set the preliminary fee in 1977 for use of the new ambulance at $45 per trip, and then it was updated on 2/4/81, voted to raise the ambulance rates to $75 effective March 1st, 1981.
We've definitely raised them since
You think?
then.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I mean, it's little things like that,
Right.
that just, you know, I think we kind of need to update.
Is that plan or that report in here?
Yeah, that's in your, you know, there's a little.
Which number?
That one was, hang on, let me get back to it. That's number 7.
Yeah. So anyway, I agree that we need to do a policy review. It was in last year, we never did it. I think that's something we should do. I also would like to add you know, we need to perhaps hire a new fire chief.
You think? Okay, yes.
And,
Oh, I didn't think about that as a goal, but I just figured that was a job that we were doing.
yeah, I want to make sure it doesn't get lost.
Yeah.
And then I would say, you know, we will already be supporting the fire chief in hiring a new deputy chief.
Yes,
Because that will have to happen, I think, by the end of next year.
yeah. Yeah.
I would like us to focus again on town hall and staff.
Yep.
Just make sure that we have cohesive staff, focus on staff development and communication, and making sure that annual reviews are getting done, and you know, just kind of focus on the management of that.
Yep, that's sort of what I was also thinking about under my town hall
Uh-huh.
rubric there.
This is just kind of going through some of mine. I would like us to work with the personnel committee on improving that process.
Yeah, that was last year's big Achilles heel, in gumming up the works.
Yeah, and I think there's just a miss in what the expectations are. I think we think that they should be, that they are doing things that they're not.
And-
I think it's just communication.
Maybe do we need to meet with them?
I do.
Okay, well, so then
Yep.
put it on the agenda.
Yeah, well,
We'll be here. Yeah,
and,
I agree.
One thing that's been sort of in and out over the last several years, I think, is what have we learned from Benfield?
mhm.
You know, was that our job or is that a trust job? Where does that go, that job? I think it's a very important job. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, and I really, yeah.
Well, that's the thing, I think, you know, it could certainly be something under the trust, you know, but it could also be a selectman goal. But I think ultimately, yeah, the trust would probably be
Well, I
because
guess
it's-
it depends upon who can fund it. Can the trust fund that type of a study?
I would,
Yes.
yeah, I would
I
think,
believe so.
yeah, I would think, because,
Yeah, I would think, yeah.
because Benfield is all affordable, right? So
Yeah.
it's directly related to affordable housing. I can ask council,
Yeah, I would think
because
that
we'd use the CPC funds.
if we can, then I would
Yeah.
say, I would think it should be the trust, since it was the trust project.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
and it is a very important study to undertake. It's not too soon to be doing it.
So there's one on here from last year that was supporting the transition of Minuteman, out of Minuteman.
Oh,
I have no idea how that ended up, other than the busing is costing us a lot of money, so I
Yeah.
think that's one of those things where we have to thank the Carlisle School Committee for managing something that we did not.
Mm.
But it might be good for us to just learn, you know, how it's going. because I would hate that to kind of, not that they would let it fall apart, but only, I would hate for there to be sudden unexpected costs because of that,
Yep.
Yeah.
like there were last year. Although I think most
There were
students.
transportation costs last year, right? Is that?
Yeah, I think it's primarily
Yeah.
around that, yep.
That's pretty.
Carrie, did you have others that you wanted to?
No, I just think there's a need for better communication on an ongoing basis with the town. And maybe we can leverage the new website for that. We're going to be probably having some way of communicating things through the master planning committee, advisory committee. And perhaps we should be linked to that so that, tied in closely with that effort so that the town gets to know, sort of what we think of the whole process and where it's going. I think we can co-opt that process.
Remain fully engaged.
Yeah.
So Nathan, are we going to divvy these up as to, having captains of each, or, what are we going to do
I think
to
what
get
I've-
this done?
I think what I would suggest is that I am just taking notes, and I will
Yeah.
put them all into a document based upon everything. We can review them next year. We will assign somebody to each of these. And that person would be not necessarily responsible for doing the work, but making sure that we're doing the work.
Okay, that's what.
They're the
yeah.
taskmaster.
The cheerleader.
Yeah.
/ taskmaster.
Yeah. So communication, town master planning. I would add just support, I like when we set up a new committee to make sure that we're focusing on them a little bit. I would like to add a goal about making sure that we're supporting this new municipal facilities committee, just to make sure that they have the support that they need in this first or second year of getting going.
Yeah.
And then eventually, they're kind of on, they're out of startup mode. I think the IT committee still struggles a little bit. Getting out of that mode. And,
Okay.
so I would like to add that we continue to support the IT committee. Anything else on
Okay.
your list, Carrie? I'll take a look at your list.
Yeah,
again.
no, that's, I just carried some things over like 40B strategy and, but most of this was focused on better communication with the town
Okay.
and better literacy of our finances.
Do we want to have a 40B goal?
Again, I thought we had that, I thought we had a new committee that was from the trust. That we got to get that back up and running, because I think that's kind of gone moribund. But the LIP committee,
But that's not a 40B
well,
committee.
it is sort of, because it's trying to head them off by doing some design criteria and looking, showing what, potential 40B developers would be expected to come up to.
I guess, I guess I would say that if we're gonna have a goal around it, it's more of a goal of building a strategy in concert with the housing authority regarding affordable housing, and leave it at that, and not have it mention 40B. It's
I
not a
agree.
40B issue, it's
I agree.
it's an affordable housing
Yeah.
issue.
In the meantime, though, that LIP committee, was that our committee? Well, that's our committee, isn't it?
Yep.
So we need to get it moving. I guess, that, since I'm one of the members, maybe I should
Yeah,
do that.
I don't know who's on it, but I'm not really sure that it makes sense to push it forward really quickly while we're in the master planning process. But,
Yeah, okay. I just don't want it to slip through the cracks, 'cause
anything you want to add?
No, I'll get you a couple more things.
All right. All right, I will write these down, and I will send them around before the next meeting. Don't comment, please.
I can get this, should I get this to Tim?
Well, if you've already sent it to me, that's good, yep. Well, I know you have already sent it to me, I just didn't know you hadn't sent it to me. Okay. 8:40, we're 10 minutes late, sorry, we were running like an hour early, now all of a sudden we're 10 minutes late.
But we're still
Come on
way
up.
ahead of schedule.
Yeah, this is the last thing, so. Is anything on the table, Jen, that we needed to discuss?
The only other thing is the motion to approve for the Mathworks.
This is all this, okay. Hello.
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 Hi. We're here tonight for a couple of updates and a couple of action items. Mike Myers is here from Tech, who's been working with the Complete Streets Committee, and Melinda Gambino, who chairs the Pathway Committee and sits on the Complete Streets Committee. I'm here on behalf of TSAC. It's a lot of hats. So do you have in your materials something that says Carlisle Complete Streets on the top? Looks kind of like that. Yep. Yay. Holy mackerel. That's awesome. So here's where we are. If we back up, the Board of Selectmen instructed Tim to put in a letter of intent to enter into the Complete Streets process. The next step was to formulate a Complete Streets Committee, which the Board of Selectmen did. The Complete Streets Committee then put out a number of meetings. Tech came and advised us from a professional engineering standpoint, and we drafted a policy that was the next step required by the state. And that policy you reviewed, approved, and it is up at the state, waiting to be scored. And so now we're at this next step. In order to get into the grant stream, we need to supply the state with a list of project priorities. And so what we as a team did, and we had great collaboration from everybody who was assigned to this process. So we had the planning board, we had master planning coordinator, pathways, police chief, three
DPW.
engineers, DPW, 3 engineers from Tech, and what we tried to do was take a kind of a global look at what's going on in the center of town and around town that really needs addressing, and hit first our most immediate pedestrian, motorist conflict areas. And so if you look at this one pager, Tier 1 is those projects, little projects that fall as the top priority. There are the crosswalks on Bedford Road.
Can I just interrupt you for 1 second? So one of the things was, maybe it was Tech coming in and doing an analysis of everything. Were these priorities based upon
Yes.
that analysis?
Yes.
Okay. And so was there a document that was created
Yes.
with that, for that analysis that? Tech
Yes, and
generated?
it's, 70 pages long.
Okay.
But what we came out of it was that, not surprisingly, we have to fix some things, and we can improve our system by filling in gaps. And as a consequence of this project, it really was a confirming process, which said, you know what, we can do better on signage and notifications around crosswalks. We can't change the locations of the Bedford Road crosswalks. They're actually ideally sited. But we can make them more noticeable through very specific measures. We can complete the East Street Bedford Road pathway and eliminate the second crosswalk that is so dangerous. We can look at the rotary, which is really big, and trucks go over the edge, and instead of having them go up and into the plantings, create a cobblestone apron according to the best, specs that the state believes works in this situation. See what the remaining the remaining pavement looks like, and start cutting down the size of those lanes so that you don't have that fast pass-through in front of the library. When people are taking the rotary towards Ferns, if they're going straight, towards the library and the post office, they just go really fast. And our crosswalk guard has said it's almost, it's just ridiculous. There's really no super magic in this other than identifying and then going about doing it right, which was really the most important part is, are we doing it right? So Tier 1 is Town Center. Tier 2 is getting onto the Bedford Road pathway from Kimball's to Foss Farm and the cemetery frontage. And that reason that's Tier 2 is because we have an opportunity to collaborate with the developer on Maple Street. We are already doing the engineering work. We will have the road surveyed and the pathway sited shortly. They're now just plotting it. And with that, we hope that's the ammunition we can use to go to the state and say, this is shovel ready, and we've already expended these funds to design it. The next tier is sticking in the center of town and really working on the area around the common. We have crosswalks that end in culverts. We have school kids who really can't get from here to there without just walking into the street. The crosswalks are not necessarily sited where they need to be. And so Tier 3 would be continuing in town center and fixing what needs to be fixed. After Tier 3, then we can start looking at bigger extensions of the system, Phase 2, which we can apply for funds through Complete Streets, but we can also apply through Mathworks, which is the better place because the funding there is up to $1 million. Any questions so far?
Yeah. So Tier 1 is this.
Mm-hmm. The set.
Am I holding it upside down? No.
I don't.
Okay.
Well, this is like a vision test. I'm going to have to. They both look pretty similar, so I have to take a look at
They
it.
have different numbers
Yeah.
on
The
the
center with the
Yes.
rotary.
Yeah.
These we have.
Right. Two. Here's 2. Here's 3. Yeah. This is. That's the first
That's-
tier.
That's Tier 1.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
those
then
red numbers align with the ranking numbers
This.
on the
On this.
spreadsheet.
Do you see
okay.
that? So you can refer to the description on the Excel spreadsheet.
So where's number 1 then?
Yeah, I think
Number
we.
1 isn't even.
I think we got a different one in our packet.
We got a
No.
different one in our packet, yes.
Number
Yeah, because it had.
Number 1,
Number 1 is the Bedford Street, Bedford Road crosswalks. It's all 3 of those crosswalks. And it's identified as that on this schedule, and it's identified as the first item on this summary sheet. The map doesn't have 1 on it until you look at the large scope, because 1 is out of the town center, except for the library crosswalk, right?
so the first one we see on here is number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2.
Number
Two would be right in the rotary, yeah.
Yeah,
Number
the
2
2 is the
right
rotary.
in the center of the rotary.
Oh, yeah,
I love that rotary design.
yeah, see, there's number 2.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
I guess if I can add one thing, we've worked with nearly 20 communities to date with their Complete Streets prioritization plans, and I take Carlisle as probably the first community we've seen that's taken this tiered approach. With the prioritization plan, the ranking it's important, but it doesn't necessarily have to be viewed as your wish list in the particular order you must apply for funds, going down through the order and getting too hung up on that. The approach to take, it was brilliant to take that approach of tiering things to focus on certain areas and not get too hung up on the ranking numbers. And it's the first time we've seen it, and I think it was definitely well done.
Our hope is to be able to present to Complete Streets granting authorities packages. And we're going to fix all of this. And we're going to go fix all of that as opposed to one little thing here and one little thing there.
And that's an important point that Mike brought up, is that we don't have to apply for them in a specific order. We can apply for 1, 2, and 7, or, you know what I mean? So it's a plan, but we're not locked into a specific order.
And when looking at the end of the 1 through 25, we're working on the construction cost estimates right now. but I can tell you that most of these are smaller scale projects, so it's gonna give you the ability to more or less a la carte, go through and select this, that, and really put a few projects together that can have an impact to equate to that $400,000 grant.
Uh-huh. But this is more than 400, do you think?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the whole
Yeah.
list?
Yeah.
You're in the
Yes.
millions.
Yeah, okay.
But
So-
these are smaller scale projects. I mean, some of these might be little $25,000 improvements to go out and improve a crossing that's unsafe today, and maybe tweak the alignment, make it safer for vehicles too. And you'll have the ability here, a lot of flexibility with this plan.
Mhm.
Is this setting a new standard for sidewalk construction for the town?
When we use the grant money from the state, we need to comply with their rules of access and safety. So the pathways would need to be ADA compliant, which means that new pathways would need to be 5 feet wide. And they would have to have an ADA surface, which can be a stabilized surface like macadam. It can look like stone, but it has to be absolutely smooth. You'll see.
I'm newly disabled.
Yes.
I can appreciate
Yeah.
it.
So if you go to the Louise May Alcott home, their pathway going up to the house is macadam. And it's a lot less expensive than,
So it has a historic kind of look to it, but it's ADA compliant.
it's sort of like your lawn looks really great if you just stand away.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
No. We can dream.
How will this affect pathways?
Sorry?
How will this affect pathways?
I say it again?
How will this affect pathways?
Can you narrow that up?
Well, must new pathways be ADA compliant as
Yeah,
well?
if we use state funds. If we don't use state funds, they don't.
And existing pathways, must they be upgraded?
Nope.
No.
Nope. Just how we spend this grant has to be compliant. So as an example, when we build the pathway on East Street to come towards Ferns, that's a whole new segment of pathway, right? And we've reviewed it, all of the reviewing committees in town have approved it, we have it all engineered and ready to go. You'll recall, we then went out to cost it, and it was just ridiculously expensive because the setup costs were just disproportionate to the run, right? So that new pathway, we'll need to go back to the Historic Commission for another review of it, but that pathway will be ADA compliant, as will the ramps around the center of town.
And these green areas, that's not grass, that needs to be mowed, right?
No, it's
And
More
paint.
landscaped.
Yeah. So-
A lot of those would be more like a landscaped area.
Meaning?
Well, actually, brings up a question of ownership. Are you going to, it'll be still owned by the town, or are you going to give it to the butter?
Town. It needs to be owned by the town. You can't use state funds on private property.
And we may need to make adjustments in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I just,
It's
It seems like a lot of what you're doing here is just taking a lot of the ambiguity out of what lane you should be in.
It's more of a deflection, an exercise of trying to create deflection.
Mhm.
Because today you can really kind of take a straight line through there, and a roundabout is a traffic calming device that provides, by bringing the curb at a certain angle, it forces vehicles to slow down
Mhm.
as they come into the roundabout.
So this design would accomplish that a little bit better. A lot better.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
So, but then the only question I have is, because bicycles are always just such a problem I don't mean the bicycles themselves are a problem, but I'm always concerned about the safety, whether I'm bicycling through it or other people, because the rotary, there's just no place for bicycles to go. Are these raised things, or how are bicycles, are we forcing them actually into the traffic circle with us?
Bicyclists and roundabouts are definitely one of the bigger challenges. With designing a roundabout, in an ideal world, you would have have them come through the road, ramp off onto a multi-use path where you'd have 8 to 10 feet, get them off the road and bring them back on. That's typically, if you have the space to do it. In this
Ticket, we
case,
don't have
at
that
this
space.
early stage, I don't think you have the space. Unfortunately, a bicyclist if comfortable, an experienced bicyclist would have to navigate the roundabout as if there were a vehicle and work that way. If they were uncomfortable, they could simply get off at the ADA compliant ramp and walk through the roundabout.
The crosswalks take, all users all the way around.
And so I just want a landscaped area. What does that mean? It means it's raised, it's stone.
Yeah, you would look to raise that area. You can't necessarily paint that area because it's not going to have that physical.
Have no impact in the
We'll just
winter time.
drive over it. You can just drive right through it once you get used to it. You won't achieve that. So you can do whatever you want with that. I mean, roundabouts, we've done a number of them, and they are one of the nicest ways to identify your gateway, have that, historic feel. There's a lot of flexibility with the surface that you can do for the apron, the truck apron. There's all sorts of different types of treatments you can use. There's, and then as far as the landscape areas, I mean, the possibilities are endless there with how you want to landscape it and present it as a nice gateway into the center.
And so the other thing I was thinking about when I was looking at this is just the number of times I've been at the center and you see an 18-wheeler trying to get around this traffic, the monument, and they're going up onto it all the time.
Right.
Does this make that more likely? Are we?
This ideal, the first step is to try and preserve that monument at all costs. We haven't at this stage, this is just an idea, it's a conceptual level, but as part of the design, as you get into more detailed design, we'll run truck simulations to show the path and look to, if we can cheat out and buy a little more space beyond that monument, we'll certainly try to. But anytime you design a roundabout, it's driven by the truck turning movements.
When Gary Davis was participating in that conversation, that was a key concern for him, as well as the turning radius on East Street going on to Bedford. And Mike's firm has, the 52 truck templates that they can simulate and see what exactly we need to do. But this is conceptual. This isn't, you couldn't build it based on this.
Right. Yeah. And then, so over by number 3 here, there's a pathway, there's a sidewalk that crosses East Street somewhere.
We've taken that out.
That's no longer in here.
It's a much safer location now, because that was very dangerous. You used to,
Over here somewhere, wasn't there?
yeah.
Yeah.
You used to cross on the other side of East Street, then you had to go around this curve and then cross again.
Yeah, there's a big
So this
tree
makes it
there.
one, and then you, yeah.
Yeah, there were kind of two crossings with a big tree in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's eliminating that.
Yeah.
Past this barn, there's a crosswalk.
Right.
And then you come around here and there's a crosswalk here.
Right.
Yeah, this is highly improved.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm hoping, very often when people turn left onto East Street, they were really cutting into they take a narrow cut, and there have been a couple of accidents I know of that they take the front end of the guy who's waiting, and,
Right. Well, also, the crosswalk was before the stop sign.
yeah.
It's like, wow, that's awesome.
Did you give any consideration to, like, down at 11, at the, once you got out of the Rotary, maybe putting a stop sign there? Because the people that are coming from Westford Street trying to get onto Concord Street, turning left there, you can't see the cars that are coming through the Rotary and around the corner, so you have to kind of take a deep breath and, jump out when you think maybe, the car's gonna go right and not straight or whatever.
Are you talking about at that intersection where the Radcliffe's house is on the right and you want to make a right onto Concord?
You wanna make a left onto Concord.
Left onto
I
Concord,
think she's,
Toward the Rotary?
Toward the Rotary,
towards the Rotary.
right.
so you're saying add a stop
A
sign here?
stop sign at that crosswalk.
Right there?
That new,
Right.
yeah,
Is that heading out of the Rotary?
heading out of the, yeah.
So the challenge there with a stop sign is then you could experience some queuing back up into the
Right, into
rotary.
Well, yes, I- Maybe
You
too
will be
bad.
able to, with this, the other thing to note too, though, if you're coming off Westford Street, once that gets realigned to a more, we call it a standardized T intersection,
Yeah.
as a driver, you now look at 90 degrees to each direction.
That's true.
It's much
That's true.
easier for you
It
to
is
see the
that-
oncoming
right.
traffic.
You're right, absolutely.
Well, plus, as a driver coming from the circle, you know, you actually don't need to turn on your right directional because you're staying on 225.
Right.
But here, you're more likely to put on your
Right.
directional because you are in fact making a right-hand
Exactly.
turn.
Okay, so
Exactly.
that might be exactly what we need to do.
It's much more intentional. You know, the traffic now picks up speed as it comes around that corner. It's leaving town center and it's heading out, and, yeah.
I've also, when I've driven this, coming up, you know, Concord Street, if I wanted to go left onto Westford, I have sometimes gone around the rotary and
Yeah,
then
you
made
go
a
around.
right.
Oh, I
So-
always do that.
Well, and in fact, it occurred to me that we could have a no left turn there and make everybody do that.
Yeah, no, I always go down there because, I mean, I live down that street.
So we don't need
Hard to make
homeowners'
that left.
permission for any of this?
Not as conceptualized. If we find that the siding of a pathway would be more safe in private property, we will talk to the homeowner and see if we can get an easement. The town has acquired 17 easements in making pathways.
And we have them for East Street, the one that isn't built yet as well,
Right.
too, right? We have
So
the easements for that.
that piece of pathway that we were talking about, where we eliminated a crosswalk on East Street, there's, the barn is there, and that easement is in place.
Oh, good.
Yeah. That was all part of getting
Some
the
of it's
approval the
on
first
our-
time.
On the road. and
Well,
so
this
we
is
didn't
also
even need an
pushing the
easement
road
there.
so much further away from the house. than I
Right.
love this.
Right.
So basically, the prioritization plan includes a lot of the, things that we had hoped to do in Carlisle, but then with the help of tech, engineering firm, they've added, several projects that are, real improvements to this universe of
Yeah.
projects, and that's how we have this prioritization plan. So hopefully, tonight, the next step is to review and move this, get approval from the Board of Selectmen, and we can move on to the next step of putting together a grant application.
Yeah.
So I guess I just have a question. First of all, would it be possible for you to, I mean, it's not contingent on an approval, but could you send the whole report over?
Sure.
That'd be great. And so this is, so what are we approving if we approve this today?
Tonight-
We're approving just this
Prioritization.
prioritization.
Yeah, and in fact, you really just need to, you can just approve this with the understanding that we are approaching it in these 4 tiers. So we're really asking you to focus in on 4 decision points as opposed to 25.
And is our approving this saying, yes, go ahead and go forward? Or is our approving this saying, yes, go ahead with the grant application for this, and then we'll talk about it more later?
B,
Or are we saying,
B,
go
no,
ahead with this?
No,
E.
this is the plan, and then we're coming back to talk about the next step of what we're gonna.
So the next deadline is October 1st. That's to submit, if we back up from that deadline, that's the deadline to apply for $400,000 in construction funding. In order to hit that deadline, this prioritization plan needs to go into Mass DOT so they can review it. Takes them about 4 weeks to review it, and then we'll need a little time to respond to comments. They'll typically have a few comments, but they won't review it, and their comments won't be typically related to the specifics of the projects. They're more logistics, pretty minor things that we can turn around pretty quickly, but the sooner this goes in, gets under review, it'll just better position you for that 10-1 deadline.
Okay.
The other piece of information that might be of interest is that if we do receive grant funds, we will manage the project. Gary Davis will manage the project. It won't be, District 4 highway trucks, construction trucks coming in and doing the project.
That's a good point.
That's
Are
also a helpful
are
information.
any above-ground electrical services affected here, telephone poles and that sort of thing?
It's
This,
a good question. It's
you want to talk about this one right here?
The reason,
the one
the
in the
reason for the question is, everybody always wants to put those underground at some point if they can do it, right? I don't know if That's it, within scope, if it's affected.
Expensive, very expensive.
It's very expensive, but I would say,
And we
Gary,
have that one pole right here in the center of town that everything runs through.
yes.
Yeah. You spotted it.
So, what we learned in this process is that Gary is putting forward a proposal to resurface a lot of the center of town with Chapter 90 funds. So this is a perfect time to take these changes and collaborate with him. And if, in doing that, there's an opportunity to bury some stuff, because we're redoing the roads a little, that would be awesome. But to tear the roads up for that alone is prohibitively expensive.
In the meantime, watch out for that telephone pole in the center of town.
Which one is that? I'm sorry.
It's kind of like right here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There's a box underground as well, and so we were talking about scanning it out and seeing if we can move the pole. We have moved poles. It's not a fun thing to do.
Yeah,
All right, so what we would be approving is the concept of the tiers and what's in each of the tiers. That would then go to the state. If the state approves it, then we would talk more about what actual things we were gonna do and make sure that we got the word out to people of what we were doing and get feedback on those things.
Yeah, I
'Cause
mean,
everybody has opinions about.
really.
And we can't, we can't take everybody's opinion, but at least just having an opportunity. I just don't want to say tonight, yes, go forward with this, and then that construction starts without anybody having any ability to.
Yeah, I would like to say that what this is going to do is give us a chance to come back. We'll know if we have a grant, right? And then we'll have to do some engineering. We'll have to do a lot of meetings and reviews. We may have, if we do this right, we may have it in a timing that we can line up with town meeting in advance. So we're with FinCom and we're not coming in at a late hour asking for funds, so that we have a full opportunity to leverage the grant money and do more that we really, that is our top priority. So that's the vision. It's, let's do this. Let's get this application in, see how we fare. Hopefully, we'll get something approved. But, it's a competitive bid system, and we could get zero, right?
But we could still apply again.
Yes.
And we would.
Exactly.
Right.
And you should know by December.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I think
Which is good
would let us,
timing.
with the
Yeah.
town meeting.
You want to do that, Karen?
Yeah, I move that the board authorize the town administrator to file a 2018 Mathworks infrastructure grant application with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to extend the Bedford Road pathway network to the proposed residential development at 7.
I think we jumped
That's right.
to the
Wait a
next
minute.
one.
That's not right.
That's not right.
There wasn't a
There is
proposal.
no, oh.
Oh, I'm sorry, I just
I
assumed
move
that
we
was it.
support the project prioritization plan process. I mean, do it a little more generally like that, because I don't think, or do you need something more?
Approve the town's project prioritization plan for the complete streets.
Yeah, that's what I was going,
As
For-
presented on,
Presented,
July 24th.
Board of Selectmen meeting, July 24th, 2018.
Second.
I just quickly reading to see if anything needed to be added. Okay,
This is excellent.
all right.
We're really
is-
excited.
Second, any further discussion?
No, just thank you for all your work on this.
Yes.
And turning it around so quick. This has been great. Yeah.
All right,
The next item we have is,
all those in
oh,
favor?
I'm so sorry.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous.
Excuse me, sorry about that. The next item we have is Mathworks. And so just to back up for a second, if you think about complete streets as a way of managing existing infrastructure and managing new projects, it's a lens of thinking about the safest way to approach pedestrians, cyclists, motorists in our public ways. And that's the thrust of complete streets. Mathworks is different. So the vision was that TSAC would be the steward of complete streets. Gary Davis would do his work in accordance with the Complete Street policy. We'd look at, everything that we're doing in town, old and new, through the Complete Street lens. Mathworks is a major grant opportunity that has different requirements on the town in order to qualify. And I think Melinda, hold on. So Mathworks is going to be presented to the Board of Selectmen from here out, from the Pathways Committee, because it's considered a significant source of funding for Phase 2, whereas Complete Streets will come under TSAC and be the lens through which we do our DPW work. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. So with that, Melinda.
So if you remember, we talked about the vision for the pathway expansion at the town meeting. We did some summer work, actually, to craft a vision statement, which I'm going to share with you later. But first I want to talk about the Mathworks grant application. So we have chosen to apply or to put together an application for construction funds for expanding the pathway from Kimball's to Foss Farm Trailhead along Bedford Road. And if we can, secondarily also apply for construction funding to expand on Concord Street from Bingham to the town line, connecting our two towns. The survey work is already underway, as Deb mentioned, on Bedford Road on 225. Their field work is done. They're doing the plotting now, and then they should be doing the siting of the pathway. I'm not sure that it will be done in time for, I'm not sure about the timing as far as, having solid figures for the grant application, but that's kind of the status of things now. So what we're here tonight to talk about is basically we just need to get the Board of Selectmen authorization for submitting the Mathworks grant application. We're going to be working on putting it together over the course of the next month and a half.
Tim Goddard, Pete Gambino, Melinda from Pathways, and me from TSAC are all completing sections of it. It's an online application. But one of the first questions, or the last question, is, do you have Board of Selectmen authorization to enter this process? So you're not approving the content of the application. You'll be reviewing the application. But this tells us in the state that we're not just doing this on our own.
Basically, we can check the box that, yes, the Board of Selectmen knows about this, that we're applying.
It is somewhat of a content-free approval.
And again, this would be under the small town rural assistance portion of the program. So it's a certain amount of funds are set aside for towns that are under 7,000 population.
Certainly.
And other towns are
10% of 100 million.
Right. So you can apply for up to $1 million, and every 3 years, basically, you have a 3-year waiting period before you can apply again. So, they like to have shovel-ready projects. They do fund design work as part of, the grant award as well. So it helps that we're doing some of that work up front. What we would want to probably, include as the design work then for, the Concord Road piece, which we haven't put into motion. We haven't done that.
That's a possible town meeting item.
Right.
Design funds for Concord.
Right. So, and some of the other reasons why 225 has been a priority is not only has the traffic volume increased and there's pedestrians using that all the time, but we have the opportunity with the developer there to work with them and leverage hopefully some collaboration there, and also that the town is now putting out a request for qualifications to do a feasibility study for the community center at 338 Bedford Road. So that would also be, an important thing to connect, to have pedestrian access to that site as well. The other piece of this, actually, I want to mention that which is new in our discussion is that we would like to construct a pathway from the end of Church Street to the Banta Davis playing fields on the cemetery side. So what we're finding is a lot of students will come down that hill. They don't have a safe, they're taking a risk crossing, and they're trying to get to the playing fields, or, this would provide access from school straight to the playing fields.
TSAC has identified that area as pretty critical to fix. We just have, child pedestrians running hog wild to Kimball's.
So we do have that crosswalk at Banta, so that this would allow students to come down the hill and make it down to the crosswalk at Banta and cross over.
There's a stone wall that's an embankment type stone wall, and there are 2 significant trees that, according to our shade tree warden, are failing. So, and it's not a scenic road, so that will be looked at in that context.
So the
these-
process here is that you need to check the box that says that we know that you're doing this. You have our authorization to do this. And then at what point do we look at it prior to it actually being submitted?
So that's the tricky part. The deadline for this is August 10th, and you don't meet again till August 14th.
So we would in fact be checking the box and approving the content, but we don't know the content. But the content is all about the pathways.
Yes.
Mhm.
And 2 specifically, the Bedford Road and Concord.
So
No more, no less.
The way the application reads is it says, does your town require a certified vote from your Board of Selectmen? And then if yes, you're required to submit a certified vote that you've approved the submission of the application.
And it's a submission of the application for the funding, not for the design.
For the
Right.
funding, yes.
Funding. Right. Because we don't have the design.
Right.
Right.
Are these pathways going to be the 5-foot pathways as well, or because they're state?
And they're further out from town, so there's a more opportunity to,
Okay, okay.
especially if you have to build a boardwalk, it's got to be at least 5.
I think one of the nice things about your application too is that as part of the STRAP grant, you're not necessarily required to have it tied to housing or economic development. That's what that other 90% of the grant funds go to. They go to a lot of the private-public partnerships, some of the big scale projects you see in and around the state. But because you're able to tie it to an 18-unit development, it's just an added bonus to your application, so it should help strengthen it.
But we can be applying for those funds as just a straight safety initiative.
But then you'll be able to check some extra boxes.
Yeah.
as you tie it to
Yeah.
Are all our current pathways compliant?
When we installed them, yes. 5 feet wide is what the ADA guidelines require, but there are exceptions, and you can be as narrow as 3 feet. You have to provide passing areas, bump outs, so 2 wheelchairs or 2 wheeled vehicles can pass. That has to happen within a number of feet. The pathways hit a driveway in that number of feet, so there's crossing that way. The surface was considered ADA compliant. I don't know if it would today. Minuteman pathway in Concord is ADA compliant, and it has a lot of rolling stone on its surface. I'm not sure how it's ADA compliant, but I think that's what we need to avoid, is we need to have a firm, stabilized surface that functions just like asphalt, but looks like heaven, right?
Minuteman, I was on planning board when that came in, on Concord Planning Board, and that was just gravel that with a stabilizer
Yeah.
on it, and then a lot of sand washed in over it.
Right.
And it was a long time ago, and I'm not sure that stabilizer is still.
Well, stabilizer is still in business, and the highway department uses it out on the West Coast a lot. It's basically psyllium, and it's mixed in with a formula of aggregate that is permeable, but it doesn't heave with roots. It's very malleable. Its big success story was in Montreal in the high park, pathways going up and down.
Decided when they came to us with it.
But when they went to Concord, asked to not follow the recipe because they wanted the color to be more historically correct. And so that voided the warranty, and that's why that took forever to fix.
All right.
So we're not voiding warranties.
The planning board didn't, it must have been somebody else in Concord.
All right, so just get us back to this.
Sure.
It's, so this proposed motion does not include Concord Road.
Well, it's incomplete then, so can we
Yeah.
add Concord Road,
Yeah,
please?
Bedford,
Proposed
Bedford.
residential development at Bedford Road and,
Area from Bingham Road to the Concord Town line.
And-
okay, so I'm gonna,
Okay, I got that.
Maybe
got
you can
it?
just reference this, because this has it
yeah,
all.
we'll do that too, but
Okay, shall I?
just
make
end
the-
it with as proposed in the Carlisle Mathworks strap grant for pathways expansion as presented. This will catch everything else, this
Okay.
document.
Thank
All
you.
right, I move that the board authorize the town administrator to file a 2018 Mathworks infrastructure grant application with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to extend the Bedford Road pathway network to the proposed residential development at 767 Bedford Road and the area from Bingham Road to Concord Town Line as proposed in the Carlisle Mathworks strap grant for pathway expansion as presented to the Board of Selectmen meeting July 24th, 2018.
Second?
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have one question. Are you our liaison? Okay, so can we, I think what would be helpful, we're really moving along, right? We're holding a lot of meetings and making progress. Can we include you in our email loop?
Yeah, please do, yeah. Well, you guys have been. Yeah, the 1 o'clock meetings are a little tough for me to get to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I realize that. I know.
But,
But it's mostly town department employees, so,
Yeah.
you know, we're trying to,
yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. So, yeah, just keep me in the loop and that'll be great.
okay,
And I
super.
can keep pumping information back in.
So I just want to go on the record, though, as saying that as part of this, we are also going to apply for that piece from Church Street to Banta Davis, that portion of
Yeah,
Bedford Road.
it's listed in here, yeah.
Okay.
Is it on that it's
Yes.
in that overall document?
Yes.
And then
I-
on the
I
document,
referenced it in the.
yeah, and it says, you know, from Kimball's to the Foss Farm Trailhead, which goes a little bit beyond that development. So it connects to that open space, the Foss
As
Farm.
long as it's on,
It's on here.
yes.
It's
On
all
that
yes.
strap
It's covered.
thing, then we covered it.
Does the developer have any kind of a schedule at this point?
I'm not,
Anything at all?
Pete could tell us, but he's not here.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And before we go, I do want to share with you the vision statement that Murray mentioned, that we did some summer work, and the Pathways Committee came up with this vision statement. It's very brief, so.
The idea was to,
We voted to, adopt this as our vision statement, so we only thought we should share it with the Board of Selectmen. What's that?
Could you do one?
Yep, I did.
this aligns us with our complete street policy.
You too. And it's basically kind of, if you remember the graphic that we showed at town meeting, it's a fully connected roadside pedestrian network that is an asset to our community, and the system will provide direct walkable routes along the main roads of Carlisle, connecting our neighborhoods to the amenities and resources of town center and to our trails. The Carlisle pathways will promote safety, community, health, education, recreation, and the environment.
To the extent funds are available.
I just want to ask you, because you guys may know the answer to this question, and I don't want this to seem like self-serving because it's in my neighborhood, but who maintains existing sidewalks? So like Monroe Hill and Nathan Lane have sidewalks that are not maintained. Who maintains those?
I mean, inside the developments?
Right.
Or inside the neighborhood, or on the main roadway, like on 225?
It's not on 225, it's on Monroe Hill.
And it's asphalt up on curb?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was installed at the time of the development.
Uh-huh.
And was there a condominium document or?
I don't even live on those streets, so
Okay,
I live
so-
on Virginia Farm Lane, which doesn't
Right.
have one. But I just,
I
walked the circle and I'm like, I wonder who maintains these, because the trees are over them, they're all mossy.
Right.
I mean, I'm not suggesting we change that, because I don't want my neighbors mad at me if they don't want it, but I was just curious, if somebody builds a sidewalk.
So,
So the sidewalks we have built, this is sort of a standard throughout the state, is abutters are expected to remove, objects that are, really dangerous, something that could amount to negligence. Otherwise, the town maintains it. They take the leaves out, they take the branches out, they take the snow out. But there is an expectation that the immediate abutter will have an eye on it.
For the
They-
pathways or for?
For the pathways.
Yeah.
For the pathways.
And
But
you
there is no
remember-
liability. So the other part of it is that they're indemnified.
Right.
You know, but if somebody takes down a tree and drags it across a pathway at night, they're on their own if there's a lawsuit. Because you just don't do that. That's willful.
Right. Right. Okay.
And when the town did purchase the equipment to do the maintenance,
On the pathways.
on the pathways, yeah, snow removal and then also like cleaning.
You know, the asphalt pathway that goes onto Westford Street from Town Center, it's up on a curb, and there's a little small strip of asphalt. I know Gary maintains that, and I'm not sure why Monroe Hill would be any different, but I don't know.
Yeah, I just assume there's other neighborhoods also that have them, and,
Not enough.
yeah. So, I mean, but if we were to require developments to have sidewalks,
Yes.
who maintains them?
So we should find out what we did for Hanover,
They
because,
don't have sidewalks within Hanover, though.
but they paid for all of those sidewalks, right? And I think the DPW took that on. I think,
Yeah, because I think it's considered an extension of the pathway.
yeah.
And I think the town looks at the pathways as different than sidewalks.
No, it's really,
Are those town roads or are those
They're
private?
town roads now, but there's no
Yes.
sidewalks within Hanover Hill. It's
Okay,
just the
gotcha.
pathway along
Okay,
225.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I just
Yeah.
thought maybe, just curious. Bugs me
I
every
can-
time I walk my dog around, I'm like, I wonder who did.
What
can
does it
find
need?
out.
What does it need? Does it need
I don't want to
something?
make any changes.
What is going on with it?
It's just completely overgrown with moss, and the trees are low, so you can't walk on them.
Oh,
It's
I
kind
should
of
take a
like,
walk down there and
There's
check
side
it
Butter
out.
that needs
Yeah,
to keep
yeah.
those clear, if those are tree branches that belong to the butter's
Oh.
tree.
you know, the town right-of-way on those pathways has a vertical and a horizontal corridor,
Yeah.
and the town has the right to trim
Yeah.
vertically.
Again, I just want to be clear, I am not suggesting we do anything about this. It just is a curiosity.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, I will entertain a motion we are not, again, I just want to state, we're not going into executive session. Does anybody have anything else they would like to discuss tonight? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. It's unanimous, and I want to thank everybody very much for watching tonight. All
Okay.
All three of you.
So, yeah.
right, thank you.